All right, hello students. I am here with a special guest today. This is Robyn Kuchenthal, and she is a food scientist. The cool thing about this is that I love food, but I gotta be honest, I have no clue what goes into food science and that. So listen up, students, because I think we're gonna get a lot out of Robyn's pathway into food science and then kind of what she does in her job. So Robyn, thank you so much for joining us for a quick, brief afternoon. And if you don't mind, I kind of stalked you on LinkedIn a little bit and noticed you went to U of I in that. Could you kind of tell us the pathway from high school to college to how you ended up in food science? And
I was in all sciences in high school. I went through all the honors, chemistry, physics. I even took AP Chem, which was fun. And I decided I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I went to the University of Illinois, and I got into LAS, which is Language Arts and Sciences. And I actually thought I was going to be a pharmacist.
okay.
That didn't seem to work out so well. I do like chemistry, but when I got into like inorganic, I was struggling a little, which is fine. But I had heard through my aunt actually that her niece on the other side of the family was going to be a food scientist. And I thought, whoa, I like food.
Yeah, me too.
And I like science. And I don't want to be a pharmacist. So I changed my major to food science after I looked into it.
Okay.
And that's how I sort of kept into the science field. But I'm staying with something I like, which is food.
Yeah.
So when I changed my major, they give you sort of a quick introductory food science course in general. So what is food science? It's everything. It's chemistry, microbiology, food engineering, food sensory, all these different sciences, nutritional sciences that come together. I decided that that was something I wanted to do. So my junior year, I signed up for all food science classes. Food chemistry taught you about lipids, fats, how they work in food, water activity, how there's spoilage in food because of the water levels and moisture levels. We had carbohydrate classes, all sorts of anything that has to do with food chemistry, which is those types of things. We also had microbiology classes that had direct relation to food, so food pathogens, how do we keep food safe. We even ended up making yogurt and ice cream in class in our micro class using yeast and different micro starters. That we had food engineering classes we had to take. So
Could you give a quick example of what food engineering is? I'm not sure I know what that means. What does that mean exactly?
Sure. So essentially, if you wanted to make like a cheese puff, right? Okay. They're called an extruded item.
Okay.
It's called extrusion. So you take your cornmeal or whatever your ingredients are, you mix them up. So food engineering would be, how do we mix the product?
Okay.
What are the speeds? What is this and that? And then it goes through the machine, and you have to have time and temperature relations, stuff like that. So that would be food engineering. And then it comes out through a tube, an extrusion tube, and then, okay, how are we going to cook it? What's the temperature going to be? What is the time? Are we going to kill microorganisms? Are we not? So that's all part of food engineering. That was kind of cool. I don't, you can actually get like masters in like food engineering and stuff. And you would essentially work out in the plant on the line is what we say. You're out on the line and work on those machines and work on those processes.
Wow, that's cool. I had no idea the overlap. That it sounds like you've got a mixture of biology and chem, like you said, but maybe even some physics in there with the engineering part. Wow, that's cool. It's like
yes, you had to take all the calculus and physics and bio. Those were all the prerequisites before you even made it into the food science program, which it's not like back in the day, I didn't have to like specifically apply, but but you did have to take all the prerequisites.
Right. Okay. So cool. So you took these food science classes in that, and then eventually,
and then I graduated. Woo!
Yeah. That's a good day.
It is. It was a great day. And I got an internship at a chocolate factory.
Oh,
So
nice.
I worked at World's Finest Chocolate. They do all of the
The
fundraising.
fundraising bars, yeah.
And there, okay, so what do I do with my degree? I don't
Yeah.
know. You could do any of those things. And I didn't talk about sensory science, but there's that piece too. Like, if we change an ingredient, is it going to taste different? Is it going to look different? And they use all these different tools to measure all the senses, like taste, smell, sight, stuff like that.
Cool.
So I could have done any of those things,
Hmm.
really. The chocolate factory, though, was a nice sort of intro. It was a smaller company. They're not huge. I like chocolate. I got free chocolates. But for that, it was everything. It was such a small company that you were like the jack of all trades. I did quality work. Like, I actually took cocoa nibs, beans, and I counted the shells and stuff like that. I mean, it was all pretty manual back then for that company. Chocolate viscosity, because if it's too thick, it won't come out of the machines.
Okay.
So there's all sorts of quality issues that I did. And then I did a little bit of product development. World's Finest didn't really make that many items that were different. They didn't come up with new things. So we didn't do too much of that, but then I did the regulatory portion, which is what I do now. So what's regulatory? It's good stuff.
Okay.
So the job I actually do is regulatory. So I went from the chocolate company to a gum company, Wrigley, which was amazing. I got free gum from there.
Perk.
So for regulatory, what is that piece? So instead of being the person that develops the product, you could do product development, and that is amazing. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about that at my new job, but or my latest job. But so regulatory, you have to follow all of the United States guidelines, which is from the FDA for sort of regular products that don't contain meat or seafood. That's regulated by the USDA. So gum, of course, is FDA regulated. You have to do ingredient statements, anything that you would see on the side of a box. So ingredient statement, nutrition information, allergen, does the gum contain? I don't know. Well, I guess it could contain milk if it was sort of a weird dairy flavor.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And then my new company, it was just a long drive and train and all that to get downtown, which is fine. But then I went to Griffith Foods, which is where I am now. Okay. Griffith is a custom spice blend manufacturer. So you won't see anything on the market with Griffith's name on it per se. It's not like it's McCormick that everybody knows about. It's not like we sell little individual jars of spices. And I do get free spices. So there's perks. There's perks to being a food scientist and having food science friends. We all get together with weird stuff. My friend worked for Kraft. We got pizza. So, I mean, it's awesome.
So when you talk about regulation and regulatory things, obviously as a company, you have to follow certain guidelines to make sure it's clean, make sure when you tell a customer that there's this many grams of sugar in the gum. So when you're doing that, is that testing out how much sugar? Is that filling out paperwork? What does that look like in order to get that maybe on the wrapper of the gum so that when I look at it, I just read it?
Right. Most of it in my field now is paperwork.
Okay.
You can, if you want. There's a whole, there's so many things to do in food science.
Sure.
This regulatory piece might not be that exciting, but you need it. You don't want food that ends up on the market that doesn't declare an allergen and somebody dies.
Right. Well, my father's a diabetic, so knowing how much sugar is important,
Right. So it's not the most exciting piece about food science, but someone's got to do it, and
it's important.
It is. So we have food databases. The USDA has a nutrition database that you can pull some information off of. Each supplier that we use provides data, and then depending on the formula that the scientists come up with, by percentages and stuff like that.
Sure.
So you kind of have to know when you're, our process is kind of manual, so we'll get a nutrition data sheet from a supplier, and we have to enter the data in. So this is where your food chemistry knowledge comes in. So if they're giving you an oil and they're telling you it has 50% moisture in it, something's wrong.
Okay.
Oil wouldn't. It would have minimal 1% or less, sometimes even 0. So you do still have to know your food chemistry in order to do something like nutrition work.
Sure.
It's a lot of paperwork, but it's fun, and lots of samples. We make a lot of good things, and we have to test it. And
so when you're doing this job, are you with a team of people? Are you kind of the regulatory person on your own? Are you working with people from the plant, et cetera? What's kind of that dynamic like?
We work directly with all departments. There's a team, there's 6 of us. We do have a lot of work, and which is fine, it keeps us busy, but we work with our scientists the most. So they'll prepare a product, send a formula to us, and then we kind of go over the rules. If they're broken, like you can't name your product that because it's got a brand in the title or stuff like that, or hey, you put too much chicken in. So for FDA, you're allowed a certain amount of either beef fat or chicken fat or any sort of animal product. Sometimes the scientists develop over, so you have to be looking with a regulatory eye at their information.
Okay.
And we make recommendations. Hey, can you switch this out for this, that, and the other? Things to make their labels clean. That's a big initiative, is people want things to be labeled like something you would just pull out of your pantry or your refrigerator, eggs, milk, easy things to understand. That's the big push right now. So we kind of do that with our scientists, and then we work with purchasing to get our documentation. We work with plants if there's allergen issues, and we need to notify them, hey, this material has, undeclared milk in it. Then there's a whole another team. There's another team that deals with recalls. If our company got misinformation from another company and now we're labeling improperly, it's a whole chain of things.
Sure. Wow, that's amazing. I never really think about it. I just go to the store and I pick up a bottle of something, but you had to have someone invent the recipe. You had to have someone engineer it to mass produce it. You have someone checking to make sure it's safe. You have someone checking with the scientists and the companies you're getting the products from to make sure that what's on the label is really in the product. And then you have people covering your rear end in case anything does go wrong, that you are prepared to inform consumers if something's unsafe. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of different jobs.
It's a ton of jobs. And for the most part, if you got your degree in food science, you could be in any step of the way. You could be the developer. You could be the microbiologist that tests it. So we actually have a micro lab. They do swabs and they test our products for us before that goes out into the field. Some customers, like the big guns, they want like everything on it tested under the earth because they want nothing. Sometimes we have products that are ready to eat that might go on a chip. So they would want everything. It's called ready to eat, like basically minimal on the micro counts.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. Anything, everything. I mean, there are specific food chemists, they're called. You could specifically get your degree in food chemistry, and a lot of people who are food chemists become flavor specialists. So they actually put all the different chemical compounds together to come up with, I don't know, a banana flavor for circus peanuts, which I tasted once. I actually went to the manufacturer that makes the flavor for circus peanuts.
That's awesome. That's cool. It's like
So,
a creative job too. There's a lot of different avenues. Did you feel like, obviously you got your degree, was there a lot of learning on the job still just
oh,
because every place is different?
everything's different.
Yeah,
Chocolate manufacturing was completely different than gum manufacturing, completely different than spice manufacturing.
nice. And did you
Um,
feel like in your profession, would you be able to jump around from like you're in regulatory, but you
mhm.
obviously jumped like from the chocolate to the gum and that. Do you see a
Yeah.
lot of that movement? If people are like, you know what, I'm ready for a new challenge, there's that opportunity?
Oh, definitely.
Cool.
Definitely. Most people strive to be the food developer, the product developer is what they call it, or research and development. People who make the product. That
Okay.
is like the big goal. So a lot of times we have people in working with the micro stuff or working out in the plant that
Okay.
want to jump back into development. Um, Personally, I loved it. It's fun. But for my company, you have to travel to your client.
Mm.
And I have kids, so that wasn't something I wanted to do. In regulatory, there's no travel. So I kind of stayed on that path. Um, but the development side is really fun. It's
Yeah.
really cool to be on the bench and then to see your product end up on the market or end up on a menu at a restaurant or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's
Robyn,
really cool.
you brought up a great point too that I try to bring up to students is that when you choose a career, it's not just your job, but also your lifestyle. Like you said, if you have a family and you're not looking to travel, that does change sometimes your career path. And
Hmm.
we kind of go through that in what we call our advisory classes. Like,
Oh,
do you want a job where you are okay working weekends or not, or travel? And when you do that, that a job isn't just affecting, your 8 hours or whatever, but like you said, that can totally change. So I'm glad you brought that up because
hmm.
I think sometimes we imagine a job in the clouds of what it's like, but we forget that there's other parts like travel to a job, et cetera, that can that can certainly change your daily everyday life. So thanks
Yeah,
for bringing that up.
definitely. Yep. Hmm.
So with all these different ideas and that this is so cool. I know so little about food science. What are some skills you felt that have helped you or helped other people in the profession that would be good to know for students now that we could start zoning in on already?
You really need to be a good communicator. You have to be able to talk to other people without getting upset. Even if you are upset, you do not show that. That is the biggest key, I think. I mean, take away all the science, take away your actual degree. You have to know how to talk to people. You have to communicate. It's like number one.
It's good
Number
to know.
one. Yeah.
Anything else is like you are you working with lots of different algebra, math, or
Math skills are huge in any science job. So there's lots of percentages. I have to calculate like milligrams into, I don't know, kilograms and do all that sort of
sure.
metric stuff. Learn to do parts per million. Sometimes we have to hand calculate our ingredient statements. So there's a ton of math involved in that. And it's basic algebra for
Right.
me. I mean, if you were working on the line and doing food engineering, you might need calculus, stuff like that. So math skills are huge. A lot of the other skills you learn on the job. So you'll learn stuff in school and you need it, but a lot of it is like on the job learning. So as long as you're paying attention, you can master your job, even if you didn't necessarily study that particular piece in school.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think you get a foundation in college and then eventually a piece of paper that says that you know something about it and that gets you a job. And then that's your foundation to springboard and learn on the job. And great. Well, I really appreciate your time and I don't want to take too much of your time. You're a busy person. But first of all, thank you so much. You brought up great points about communication, math, your pathway, thinking beyond just the job, but what type of life are you interested in? Are you interested in a family? Are you not? Travel, etc. All those things play into our career, not just our specific job when we're at work. So that's great information. Thanks for highlighting all the unique jobs in food science. I had no idea. I feel guilty now when I eat a Cheeto, how I take it for granted, how many people worked
I
before
know.
I shove that in my mouth. through it with extrusion. Is that the term?
Yes, yes.
I learned extrusion.
You
Uh,
did.
but I really appreciate it. I think people who are passionate about food can find a lot of different unique ways to get involved with it too, without not necessarily going to culinary school, which is, I
Right.
think,
Yes.
what we often think of is just
Right.
culinary. So
Right.
thank you so
Exactly.
much for that.
You're
All right.
welcome.
Well, I appreciate your time, Miss Robyn. So do my
Mhm.
students. And who knows, maybe we got a couple new food scientists because of
Yeah, I
you.
hope so.
Thank
I
you
hope
for
so.
that.
It's a good industry. You're welcome.